information, we're not going to be exacting it, but we will hear a new testimony. And if you spoke last week, you just submit yours or testimony if you've already spoken. And so with that, we're going to on recess.
Reopen.
Yeah, that's it. Reopen 1603 FN. And let's see. Did the prime sponsor already speak? Would the prime sponsor like to speak again? Please.
Thank you. I will be quick. I just want to address a couple of things that I heard last week in the hearing. So Chairman and members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak again. I want to briefly address a few of the concerns raised at the hearing last week. First, I want to be very clear that I deeply respect the people in this room who care about protecting endangered species. I share that commitment with them. I moved to New Hampshire because of its natural beauty and strong conservation tradition. Prior to serving in the legislature, I also served on my town conservation, forestry committees, and I'm also the vice chair of the Heritage Commission. So I spend most of my personal time enjoying our outdoors. I have a degree in agriculture, and anyone who knows me knows that I care deeply about the land and wildlife that call this home. HB 1603 does not weaken protections for endangered species. This amendment simply codifies into Rule 2 practices that Fish and Game has stated are already part of their standing operating procedures. Obtaining landowner permission before entering private property and relying on verifiable evidence when documenting species presence. However, last week during testimony, we heard two different arguments. And some testified that these practices already occur routinely and that researchers regularly contact landowners before conducting surveys. And if that's the case, then codifying these practices into rules should not create any new burden or fiscal impact if they're already doing it. Others suggested that requiring landowner permission would be costly or burdensome, but if the department and the biologists conducting the work are already doing this, as was stated during testimony by multiple people, then this bill simply provides clarity, consistency, and transparency by moving those practices from an internal SOP into formal rulemaking. This bill ultimately ensures two things: respect for private property rights and accurate, verifiable data when making conservation decisions. Those principles strengthen both conservation efforts and public trust. Thank you.
Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative, for additional testimony. It's really very helpful. And I think we're all kind of sharing the same spirit of doing what we can possibly do and protect the endangered species and so on. Just a couple of things. One concern I've had is that, when we did the budget this year, we ending up the second year, there's nothing in the Fish and Game Fund. So would you agree that we've just got to make sure that this isn't going to not going to burden financially the department to do the rulemaking?
Thank you for the question. And yes, I agree that they are already doing this. This is already a standard operating procedure. So I don't foresee this impacting anything fiscally.
Thanks. And I think we will try to make sure that's the case, and however we end up wiggling this. Then the other thing, just a couple of concerns I had some conversation about is that two things. I think that we might need to put some definition around site specific so that we're really talking about when somebody's going onto a property and so forth, rather than somebody go down the road or somebody calls and I saw links. And then the second thing would be to kind of try to clarify when it really is the responsibility of Fish and Game, wildlife biologists, or other personnel to do the reporting if that reporting, if they may be under contract or working for DES, say, which has, its own, I worked for 14 years. So I think those are the kinds of definitional things we might make the rule making clearer. So you see what I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Further discussion? Thank you, Representative.
Oh, one more thing, I'm sorry. And I maybe I didn't quite hear your testimony, but one thing I want to be pretty clear about too is that we're not expecting Fish and Game to go back into the historical record and redo everything and reconfirm.
Correct. What was intended with this amendment is moving forward, that it would be, I think anything moving forward would be held to this standard. Obviously, if someone decides that they want to build an ADU on their property and something pops up, then they would have the opportunity to revisit this and make sure that it was verifiable at the time, or that it currently is verifiable. So I would like for that to be an option for them.
Thank you.
Senator Rosenwald. You got it. Good job.
Thank you for taking my question. So I'm interested in why on line 14, you specifically point to the age of the data. And the reason I ask is because I always default to something that I have some familiarity with. And in this case, it's the Framingham Heart Study, which is basically 75 years old. It's tracked 15,000 people over 3 generations. Wouldn't you agree that long-term data can be very helpful for looking at trends?
Thank you for the question. And yes, I do believe long-term data does help with trends. However, when it comes to this, when it's talking about, but not limited to the age of the data, I believe that some of the animals that are on the endangered list do have certain lifespans. And once those lifespans have exhausted themselves, then there may not be any more of those endangered species or animals on the property. So I do think that that comes into play.
Follow up?
So let's see if I understand your answer. If a turtle is crossing a road to someone's land and then it dies, it's no longer threatened or endangered because it's dead?
No, I'm sorry for that. Let me clarify. What I'm saying is, if on my property, I spotted a blanding turtle on there and it created a nest and had eggs, but then it left, and 5 years down the road, we had not had any turtles on our property and they had not been seen, there were no habitats left, then I think that we should not be held, that the landowner should not be held to the standard that there are turtles still on the land. If they're not there, I don't think that those land restrictions should be on there. I'm not saying that the turtle is not still endangered and not alive, but if they're not there on the property, or if the turtle family has been there for 15 years and then the turtle passes away, then the turtle would no longer be there. Doesn't mean that it wasn't endangered or that it wasn't there originally, but it's no longer there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Senator McCarthy?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I come at this from a little different perspective than my fellow senator. I work outside. I live in the Lakes region for 40 plus years. I've been doing septic designs, installs, waterfront assessments. And I have never been fortunate enough to see this turtle while I've been out there. Neither have my crews ever mentioned this turtle, and I know this is a wonderful creature. Most everything I do requires pulling a permit from DES, and every permit now costs $50 that I charge back to my client. And 90% of every one of these reports come back that I have this wonderful turtle on my property, and then after extensive investigation, they tell me to move ahead, but now I'm being told to put up signs for turtles to view for them and so forth. So I am all in favor of keeping track, and I've been educated here about the lifelong span of this turtle. But I want records to be current. And if they're not, they don't do any good. They're costing my clients money, and they're costing me time and materials and holding off my jobs. Would you believe?
Thank you for the question. And yes, I have run into that multiple times with people not only across the state, but especially in my community in Danville. I hear that time and time again, that it does cost money for the property owner and time on projects or anything that's going on. We did have a property in Danville that unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of access to Danville that is commercial, and this tied up some commercial land that would have brought some tax relief to my town, and unfortunately, we weren't able to get that done, and the landowner was forced to put a majority of his land in an easement to satisfy a mitigation plan so that he could move forward with his project because it was just costing too much time and money.
Any follow-up? See you. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayberry.
Good morning, Chairman and Senators. Happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Matthew Paul Fitzpatrick Mayberry.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And I'm the CEO of the New Hampshire Home Builders Association. Thank you for your time today. It's a great day to be in New Hampshire. When 1603 was first introduced in the House, the New Hampshire Home Builders Association and the 27,000 members that we represent opposed this. We thought it was heavy-handed in too many different directions. But the stakeholders pulled, the sponsors pulled all the stakeholders together and worked out a compromise that could work for all of us. Those who want to save and help endangered species, and those who want to conquer the #1 economic issue driving the state of New Hampshire right now, and that's housing. It's a collaborative effort. So, Senators, I'm here to speak to you today in unbridled support of this bill, because what it does, all it does is it directs the Fish and Game to develop and adopt the rules. They're not in here. They say you have a year to create the rules in which people will be notified. You can have access without trespassing with those rules. You'll have notification without being heavy-handed on that. All you folks are saying is, Fish and Game Director, develop rules and bring them back to both houses to be adopted. You aren't passing anything today other than saying, go do some work and come back and see us within a year. So I would encourage you to please support this. The stakeholders did a great job. I keep saying stakeholders. The sponsors did a great job of working with the stakeholders to find a collaborative that moves the issue forward for all of us. Please. That's it.
Senator Waters.
Do you want me to call you a Matty or Patty?
It can be Maddie until noon, then at 12:01, it'll probably go to Patty at that point.
Well, good to see you. And, you know, you're absolutely right. We, you know, the housing issues and so on and so forth. And we've done some work on things like zoning and lot size and, you know, trying to do something big maybe next year on water infrastructure.
Please.
But I'm just curious because you were mentioning it. Can you quantify how many housing units have been stopped because of endangered species rather than the other zoning and lot size things?
Yes, sir. Stopped is a hard word. Limited or reduced in scope would probably be more accurate. We've had folks where,
How many units I'm trying to get at?
unfortunately, I don't know, sir, but I can find out from our members, from their experience, and I can get that back to you within, today's Tuesday, I can have it to you by Thursday afternoon if that's acceptable. And that'd be just a rough estimate from my members.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like that, sir?
I'm just curious.
Of course.
If this is a real issue, as opposed to other things, the quantification of it would be helpful.
And it'll be a random sampling. What I'll do is I'll find like 7 or 8 of our larger builders and ask them, if you went with 80 units, because of endangered species, did it get reduced to 25? Yep. So I'll get that number for you. I'll get that to the entire committee, if that's right, Chairman.
Yeah, I'm not talking about wetlands, I'm talking about endangered species.
Yes, sir. I'm
So,
sorry, I
yeah,
misspoke.
Thank you.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning,
Good morning, Senator.
Patty. Um, Do you think that as policymakers, we should put some guidelines around what these rules would include? Or are you comfortable just giving the Fish and Game Department just total authority to set rules however they want?
424 people plus the governor can come up with a much better collaborative framework than one person being executive director. I think it's their mandate to propose that for you folks to decide. Because there were different thoughts in that, Senator, of do you look at it as species specific? The Blanding's turtle, for instance, has a 70, 80-year lifespan, but the black racer snake has a 10-year lifespan. Should the black racer snake have a 100-year legacy of territory? But should the Blanding's turtles only have 2 years when their lifespan is 70 years? So I think it'd be very helpful for all involved, ma'am, for the legislature to say, we would like to see some species specific or species broad. You folks are the ones that we trust with our state. There's 425 of you. I trust that decision making.
Well,
So it sounds like you agree.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was a really long answer for yes, ma'am.
I thought this originally was going to be about mountain lions. That's what I thought this bill was going to be about. Yeah,
Welcome to Fish and Game.
so I'm surprised it's about turtles.
So, lots of us.
any further questions? Mr. Patty, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chairman.
Linda Dion. This needs grease.
Good morning, Senators. I sent you my testimony last night in email. Did you get it? But I also have it here with me
Thank
to give to you.
So if you've sent it, if you could speak from your heart and not read it to us.
I'm not going to go through all that, but I'm going to make a few points. But just what I've heard so far, it's some of you senators should be alarmed that you're not seeing a Blanding's turtle. You know, that means there aren't many of them out there, so they need protection. So, this last gentleman just said the sponsor consulted with all the stakeholders. Did she really? Did she contact New Hampshire Turtle Rescue or any of the biologists or, you know, who are opposed to this bill, as I am, by the way? Also, somebody said, the sponsor said this is a bill that they're already doing. So this looks like a solution looking for a problem. This bill should be ITL'd. It's a solution looking for a problem. There's really no problem. It's like Drew said last week. These people, you get your permit. You finally get your permit. As far as it being $50, everything's going up. You know, I can't get a permit to protest. It costs $50. Another thing about rulemaking, we have a new director right now. She is very busy. I don't think she wants this on her table. She really doesn't. And Fish and Game staff doesn't either. The one thing about Fish and Game right now is that the commission is opposing the bill, supporting the bill, so that muffles the biologists. They can't speak freely any longer. If you want to really know what the biologists think, go back to their House testimony before the commission supported this bill. And I recommend that in this, how to do that, or, just ask the House for Mike Marchand's testimony in the House. Don't go by what he's saying now, because right now he cannot say anything. The commission are the bosses of Fish and Game. You know that, right? They are the bosses. What they say goes. Mike Marchand cannot speak freely now. Not can Melissa. They have to do what the commission requires. So I guess that's about it, except, a couple other things. About the affordable housing, these rich landowners, they're not going to build affordable housing. That's not what this is about. When they say landowners, they're not talking about the little landowner like me who might put up an ADU. They're not talking about the working class family who needs a house on it maybe change zoning laws and get denser housing, because that's what housing, that's what working class families need. That's affordable housing. Affordable housing is not this big house on 2 acres of land. Nobody can afford that. The working class cannot afford that. I haven't heard anything said about the Wildlife Action Plan. This is a federal program required by the federal government because they don't want species on their endangered species list. They don't want more species on the endangered species list. So this is a proactive program to prevent that from happening. And one of the first, I want to give you this too, the SWAP, it's called State Wildlife Action Plan. It's a 10-year plan required by Congress. And the biggest threat to wildlife right now is habitat loss and fragmentation. That's the biggest threat. This is a bill for the rich, and it also is not necessary, as the sponsor already said. She says they're already doing this. And you brought up item 14, that would disqualify all this past data that has been implemented or recorded. All the past data, like you said, in item 14 will be nullified. And turtles live for like 80 years, so if they were there 10, 20 years ago, they're still there. And this man mentioned the black race of snake, and if he only lives 10 years, but she will have many babies during that 10-year period. So if she was there, you can bet her offspring are there too. And you can't just throw that data away. I think that's about it.
Thank you. Questions
well-
from the committee?
Yeah.
Senator Waters.
Thanks so much, Linda.
Yep.
So
That passes.
I wonder if you could give a little more thought about, in your document, about the landowner permission concerns. And, I just want to say, I do agree we'll come up with something for landowner permission. I think it's important in terms of directing the rules on that. But there is this issue that I think I raised the last hearing, that if somebody is on unposted land, a hiker or a hunter, or is just going by in the street and observes a species of concern, and report and documents reliable information, maybe they take some notes or take a picture or something like that. Would they be able under this bill to report that and have that included? Because that particular sighting has not been previously permitted?
No, because if they don't get landowner permission, if, hunters and hikers go onto unposted land freely, and hunters and hikers, people who are out in the woods, they're the ones that are going to see these animals. And everybody has a phone nowadays, so they can take a picture, prove that they saw that animal, get it verified from Fish and Game. But if they don't get landowner permission, that
Yeah.
won't be valid, or it
and-
won't be.
And, you know, obviously, it's not like the biologist could go back out and hope the animal's just sitting just where it was a week ago or something
Right.
and verify it that way. But so maybe what we need to do in the bill is specify that how the rulemaking is going to handle things like that.
Yeah, but I think the bill should be ITL'd.
Well,
So I don't, no, I
think
know you want to
we
compromise.
want to try to
You-
do
you
something, but we want to do
compromise.
the right thing.
And like,
so, yeah.
Senator Pearl said last week, you want a balance between landowners and endangered species. But the thing is, if you want a balance, what you really have to do is go the other way. Because right now, there is an imbalance, and it's favoring the landowner, especially the wealthy landowner. I'm sorry, seem to have issues, with putting in septic systems. I don't really understand that too much, because you usually put the septic system in close to the house, near the house. So usually that's not an issue, and like I said, you've never seen a Blanding's turtle. I feel sorry for you. They're beautiful animals, and they have yellow under here, it makes it look like they have a smile, like they're smiling at you.
Any further questions? Seeing it, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Chris Bogard? I don't see the department
Excuse me, who's this from? Excuse me.
here. It's from her,
Who's?
from Linda.
So this one as well?
Yes,
Both of them? This is also from Linda?
yes. I'm sorry, you're welcome.
Good morning, Senators, and thank you for your time. My name is Chris Bogard, and I am a state licensed wildlife rehabilitator. I also hold a Bachelor of Science degree in environmental studies. I received my permit to rehabilitate wildlife in 2001. And I'm bringing this date up because I want you to know that my professional experiences with Fish and Game and with landowners that I'm about to share with you spans over 2 decades. I work exclusively with turtles. One of the requirements that rehabilitators we must adhere to is mandatory annual reporting of any listed species that we have encountered. Since 2001, my listed species annual reports to Fish and Game have been, of course, the species name, their life stage, their weight, their disposition, where they were found, and GPS coordinates of where they were released. I was also, when I first got my license, I was instructed by New Hampshire Fish and Game that pictures must accompany all my reports on listed species. Now, I know that the data that I have given to Fish and Game for over 2 decades, it is accurate and it is verifiable, and it is useful and it is very important. Now, my encounters with landowners over the years, it's been agreeable, enthusiastic, caring, and helpful. I'm going to give you an example of one of my interactions with landowners, and I think it'll make clear to you why I'm interacting with landowners and how they react to me. Usually I interact with landowners when it's time to release the turtle. That's if the turtle survives being hit by a car, and then we release them the next spring. So I received a hit by car spotted turtle that was found down Hooksett Road in Auburn. When I met up with the woman who found the turtle in the road and picked it up, and she passed the turtle on to me. She wasn't exactly sure where on Hooksett Road it was, and I told her I need that information because I need to know where on Hooksett Road to start looking for appropriate wetlands for release time next year. She told me she went up and down it every day on her way to work. She got back to me in 2 days with an address. So the turtle survived, and it was slated for release the following spring. Using various mapping applications, which is what all of us rehabilitators do to look for the release site, using the where it was found data, I found the wetlands that this turtle very likely came from. It was close to the hit site, and it was very spotted turtle appropriate, and I was 100% confident that this was her home and it was part of her home range and she knew this wetlands. So about a month before release time, I drove up and down Hooksett Road because when I looked at it in the map, it was just completely lined up and down Hooksett Road with houses. And so I drove out there and drove up and down Hooksett Road looking for an access point. There really wasn't any, and I realized I'm going to have to go through somebody's yard. I need to go probably through somebody's property to be able to release this turtle. So it just so happened I found a gentleman that was out in his yard and he was gardening. So I, of course, pulled over and I went up to the man and I introduced myself and I explained to him, what I was doing and that I know there's a wetlands that's behind you and I believe that that's where this turtle came from. And do I have your permission to cross through your yard in a couple of weeks to release this turtle? He was more than happy to accommodate me. He invited me into his house and we went through the house and went out his back door and he had kind of a nice little path that led to the wetlands so I could get a better view of them. And I realized what an anomaly it is to use an absolute term like always, but I have always had good feedback from the landowners when I've had to deal with them. I've never had anybody deny me access to their land. Lastly, in reviewing the bill, and I've perused it once and read it once, but I have to ask myself, who mainly is this bill benefiting? And I also have to ask myself, who does this bill not benefit? And in my opinion, clearly, it is New Hampshire's listed wildlife species. And that was going to be the end, but I've just got one quick thing. Lifespans has come up. It just came up, the lifespans of turtles and, how long do we keep the data and use that 30, 40, 20, 50-year-old data as data to be used that these animals are still on this whatever property. And I just want you to know that turtles are the longest living vertebrates on Earth. And for them to have a lifespan of anywhere, it depends on the species, but it could be 30 to 80 years. They live a long, long time. And in all that time, they're also hopefully producing offspring. So maybe the adult is gone, but now we've got offspring on that land. So I don't know how accurate or justifiable it would be to the animals to use lifespan, if we're going to look at it as a short lifespan, as a criteria for not using that data anymore, because they're just too long-lived. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Senator Rosenwald.
Every summer, I participate in a loon census, which is really fun. And we track the long-term presence of loons. And the age of the data is really important because while I've been going to the Adirondacks my whole life, I never saw a loon until like 25 years ago. And now they've started to come back for whatever reason. But isn't that why older trend data is useful too? Not just the lifespan of a particular animal, but the size of a population of a particular species.
Well, absolutely. It allows you to see the trend, how a population is trending. In other words, are the numbers going down? Are the numbers going up? I know, at least, well, I think that the fish and game biologists also look at what is the mixture of adults versus juveniles versus subadults versus hatchlings. So yes, the older data, and it's critical. It's critical to know what the health of a population is.
So I have a question. How far do these turtles travel?
Okay, if we're talking about females looking for nesting sites, and of course, that depends on the landscape. It could be anywhere from, I think, 1 to 2 or 3 miles that they would travel to find an appropriate place to nest and then go back to their wetlands. In the spring, I know the males travel. I think that they're looking for girlfriends. I think that's what the males are doing out and about in the spring. And I'm honestly, this is an educated guess, but maybe a half a mile to a mile and a half that they may travel from their overwintering wetlands to a different wetlands because they know that's where the girlfriends are. I know I heard one report from one of the fish and game biologists. It was a wood turtle that they were tracking, and they tracked him as having traveled, I remember it was 7 miles. I don't remember the time period in which he did this 7 miles. It was like 1 or 2 days at the most. So it depends on the turtle, it depends on the landscape, how far they will travel.
So this basically, depending upon this, could affect any type of development within 3 to 7 miles of an area where a turtle has been spotted from that spot, correct?
Well, I don't deal with development, so I don't really know how they make those decisions.
Interesting. In Nashua, I go to a place called Mine Falls. I love it.
I've heard of that.
That's my Central Park. And walk it all the time. And as you walk on the trails, you see the holes where foxes dug up
Oh.
the eggs of the turtles. So that has an impact as well, correct? So do we get rid of the foxes?
They're not listed.
Did you read about the one the ship from England?
Yes, I did.
They're not-
That's going to affect the turtles.
they're not listed.
I don't have, no, things that would occur naturally out in nature, like nests getting dug up. No, I don't have a problem with that. I don't feel like, gee, whatever animal is digging these up, let's get rid of all of them. And turtles, quite frankly, they have been around since dinosaurs, and they've done very well remaining in existence on the face of the earth until, well, unfortunately, until,
The human animal,
yes,
so we have to coexist.
yes, exactly. We just coexist, allow them to exist.
Senator Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your testimony today. So I just want to back up a little bit to the story you were talking about. So why did you stop and talk to the gentleman that was in this yard?
Because as I was going up and down Hooksett Road, I think by this time I don't know, I had gone maybe a mile beyond, a half a mile, I can't remember, but of the where found coordinates looking for, I thought maybe I'd find a little park or an empty lot or something that would give me access so that I didn't have to go through somebody's yard. And I didn't find anything, so that was on my way back from Hooksett Road. I was going to get back onto 101 West, and I saw the guy out in his yard. And I thought, well, why not stop, introduce myself, explain what I'm doing, and see if I can get his permission to cut through his yard and be on his property to do this turtle release.
Oh,
Because it was that specific wetlands that I wanted to release her into, because as I said before, I know that wetlands was part of her home range.
Sure. I think we would both agree that had you not seen him and decided to walk through his yard to access the wetlands without his permission, it probably wouldn't have been a good scene.
I have never done that.
Yeah. So
I have never done that.
And I appreciate that. And I think that's what the flavor of this bill is looking for, is just to make sure that there is a procedure in place, because you are using best management practices in trying to achieve your goal. And I think the intent of this bill is to try and make sure everyone does. balance so that we don't have those, again, talking about that balance as it was, as Linda had mentioned earlier, that we've got to achieve that balance to respect landowner and property owner rights as well as trying to achieve the goal you want to. And I think you'll almost always find that the landowner's probably going to be, agreeable to let you do that as long as you ask ahead. So,
Yes.
but I guess, would you agree with me then that it's probably best practice overall to ask permission if you're able to?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I have two questions. First, do people actually let you release snakes onto their property?
I don't deal with snakes.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't
I'm
either.
only licensed to work with
Okay.
turtles.
Just curious. Secondly, in the bill, on lines 18 and 19,
What page?
well, there's really
page?
only one page. So it says, it basically gives rulemaking authority without any policy parameters to Fish and Game for defining what appreciably jeopardized the continued existence of such species is. Do you think that as a policymaking body, the legislature should put some parameters around that, since once we say, go make rules, that's it?
That's really difficult for me to answer, and I have to answer your question with the question because I don't understand what policies or parameters aren't in place that you feel that you or whomever would need to put in place. I don't understand what that gap is. And I guess part of it is just because of my own personal experience. Again, for so long working with Fish and Game, I feel that parameters have been in place as far as, well, parameters, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, as far as how to give them my listed species data. They've told me what they want and what they need. And as far as release protocols, I don't know if anybody from Fish and Game ever actually came out and said to me, although I think somebody did, that, if you feel the need, you need to be on private land, you need to get landowner permission. But I also kind of feel like that is also just me personally, what I felt I needed to do. So I'm not sure what parameters and policies you're asking me would need to be put in place. I'm sorry,
All right. Any further discussion? Thank you very much for your testimony. Robert? Robert Lurie?
Yeah, that's me. Thank you. My name is Robert Laurie. I live in Danville. And speaking in favor of the bill, and just as I was sitting there listening to this previous testimony about releasing a turtle onto somebody else's property, I would be extremely concerned that as a landowner, if somebody came on my property and released an endangered species from someplace else. Now, I know these people that are responsible because they're professionals or they're very familiar with these turtles. Personally, I'm not. I'm a member of the Danville Long Pond Protective Association. I have my Save the Turtles t-shirt, as you can see. We have a lot of turtles, and I like the turtles, but to be honest, I couldn't tell you the difference between a painted turtle and a Blandings turtle. I just know there's a lot of turtles out there. They're not endangered, and if one of them was, I wouldn't know it, which is the point of my testimony today. I'm on conservation in Danville. I'm on forestry. I'm a certified arborist. I'm a member of the Volunteer Lake Assessment Program here in New Hampshire. and I live on Long Pond, so our main concern is not so much endangered species, but we have invasive species. So the main focus is milfoil. Now, as past president of the Long Pond Association, I would frequently get calls from people saying that they've seen milfoil on the pond or in a different pond. And I would go there and look at it, and it's not milfoil at all. But there's a lot of similar species. So without some expertise, it's really hard for people to identify it unless you're really familiar. Like I said, I couldn't identify, I know a turtle. I couldn't tell you anything beyond that it's a turtle. With a tree, I can identify a tree very accurately because I deal with that every day. And I've had many people call me, say, I got a problem with my pine tree. I go there, look at, it's not a pine tree. It's another evergreen tree, but to them, it's just a pine tree. So my point is codifying the rules to make the data accurate goes a long way to, number one, protecting the species and also protecting the property owner rights. Last night I went on the DES website and tried to access the database, and I couldn't. I was denied. I don't know, it might have been me just because I'm not very adept at dealing with computers and websites, but I couldn't get on the website. So, and part of that is if I couldn't get the data, there's going to cause a delay. I was just doing this as an experiment. But if I had a project I was interested in doing and I needed to get accurate data, to me, it wasn't accessible. So, which leads me to a couple of points that codifying the rules and knowing the rules makes it accessible to everyone. And as Sarah, Representative DeVito had mentioned, we had a project in town. It was actually a different one that she mentioned, but it was held up for a year or more by Fish and Game because they had to sign off on all the plans for the project. And this was a commercial property, and Danville does not have very many commercial properties, so our tax base falls on the homeowners. So this affects our property taxes and ability to do projects. And part of it, the problem that this particular landowner had was it was rather arbitrary as to what Fish and Game had required, and they didn't know the rules because the rules weren't codified and accessible to everyone. And as far as accuracy goes, too, I just wanted to make the point that observing Long Pond, it evolves constantly. It's not the same. Like we were originally treating for milfoil. We got that under control, and now it's not an issue. But now we have another one. It's fanwort. And I bet nobody here could tell the difference between I could because I'm familiar with it, but most people would not be able to tell the difference. And DES does come and check. We do treatments every year. We're working in coordination with DES. And as far as fiscal impact that was mentioned too, they're already doing it. I can attest that DES already verifies the accuracy of our data. If there's a report, they would come out and check it before there's any treatment. But if somebody made a report and it was inaccurate, they may come out, or it may hold up a permitting process, which would cause a delay. Probably running a little long, but I'll end it there.
So the point you just brought up is that if somebody put an endangered turtle on your property, that's a problem.
Yes.
And it could affect the outcome of how it is developed, if it had potential for being developed. And I respect the previous testimony, but it was basically her best guess because of, it seemed to be within the proximity, but if there was another pond that she didn't know about, that turtle could have been misplaced, and the landowner now has an endangered turtle on their property, and its use may be limited in future. Is that what you were trying to get across?
Yeah, I was just trying to make the point that as I was listening to that, just putting my place, because I live on the pond, like if there was a turtle and somebody found it and decided, well, here's a nice place to put it, and they didn't ask. I mean, that would be just common courtesy, but maybe well-intentioned, but they just put this, I mean, it wouldn't have to be a turtle, it could be some other, or it could be an invasive species for that matter. So we have that, the invasives come because people don't identify accurately the particular species, and then they bring it in on a boat. It's a common problem statewide.
And so if it was documented that this turtle was misplaced, then that automatically, you know, with all good intentions, that affects the value and the use of your land.
I would think so. I mean,
Could milfoil be carried by a turtle from one plot?
good question. Probably. It just takes a very little piece of it. I mean, you just transport it on a boat like a propeller, and people don't wash off their boat or in the trailer, and they go from one pond to another, and it goes from pond to pond.
Not picking on turtles, just looking at all the possibilities. Questions from the committee? Birds can
Maybe not
too.
milfoil, they can certainly.
Yeah. Senator Rosenwald, question? No. Questions? Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
It's our job to look at all the angles. Is it Jamie Yes. That sounds Scottish to me. Okay. Yes, we all identify very strongly with you. Irish. Welcome.
So bear with me, this is my first ever anything like this. I am a lifelong, or at least since I was 6 years old, resident of New Hampshire. I am also a conservation biologist. I have 2 degrees from in the state in biology and conservation biology. But I am here to speak to you as a citizen, a business owner, and a landowner in New Hampshire. I could speak to the fundamental importance of protecting rare species and habitat. I think other people have done that more eloquently than I could. I do oppose HB 1603 because fundamentally it wastes taxpayer money and increases uncertainty for landowners and towns. For years, New Hampshire has invested public funds in documenting endangered and threatened species. It isn't just state funding, it's federal funds, state match grants, and private investment. The records this bill proposes to erase represent decades of scientific work that taxpayers and others have already paid for. Deleting those records does not remove the species, it only throws away valuable data. If those records disappear, the work will eventually have to be done again, costing more time and more money. Good data helps projects move forward efficiently and avoids expensive surprises later. I would expect those who prioritize fiscal responsibility to recognize that if we care about efficient government, we don't delete decades of work just to pay for it again later. Because of this, and as a member of New Hampshire's public who takes some ownership of this data, I sincerely ask that you oppose this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Can you show me where we delete old data? in the
You're
bill?
talking about disregarding historic records. It would be my concern with this. And you're also setting a precedent. If you're not paying attention to historic data, you're setting a precedent that people who have a lot of financial pressure on them for development are not wanting to see things that are present there. A lot of the testimony, a lot of the conversation has felt to me like you're saying if you go out one time and you don't see that turtle or other endangered species there, that then that doesn't count any longer. It's the age of data.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Carol Foss? Welcome, Carol.
Pardon?
Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Avort, Avard, members of the committee. My name is Carol Foss. I am Senior Advisor for Science and Policy at New Hampshire Audubon, and this morning I am representing not only New Hampshire Audubon, but also the Society for Protection of New Hampshire Forests, the New Hampshire chapter of the Sierra Club, the New Hampshire chapter of the Nature Conservancy, the Connecticut River Conservancy, the Loon Preservation Committee, and the New Hampshire Rivers Council. We oppose this bill with respect to enshrining the procedures for verifying accuracy of records. We feel that rulemaking for this is unnecessary. The department has procedures. If the intent is to make those procedures more open and available to the public, the department can post those procedures on their website where they're readily accessible to everybody without having to go through a time-consuming and expensive rulemaking procedure. With respect to gathering land or getting landowner permission for gathering site-specific species locations, we consider this unrealistic, inappropriate, and ambiguous for a bunch of reasons. And some of the ambiguity has come up already this morning. I won't get into that. There's a lot of concern about using this data for denying permits or what have you. This data is also used for state and federal grant applications where the presence of a listed species gives you extra points if you're applying for a grant to protect a wetland or whatever. So it's important to recognize that the data is used in kind of in both directions, so to speak. The other thing that hasn't really been discussed is that the point locations, if you'll excuse the pun, isn't really the point. There's been so much emphasis on the point location, but really those point locations are a trigger for biologists to look in that area for suitable habitat for the species. And it's the suitable habitat that is important, not the point where the animal was seen. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about turtles and how far they move. So I come out of Dunkin' Donuts. The Dunkin' Donuts is near a wetland. There is a Blandings turtle crossing a corner of the parking lot on its way from the wetland to where it's going to lay its eggs. The point is in that parking lot. If I'm John Q. citizen and I want to take a picture of it and report it, who do I go to? The manager of the local D&D, corporate headquarters? I mean, the point isn't important. It's the indication that there is suitable habitat that supports a population nearby. The other thing is the bill kind of conflates formal surveys done by a professional biologist. I mean, I'm a professional biologist. I do a lot of work, not on endangered species, but I do a lot of work on forest lands up north. As a matter of course, you get landowner permission. I have two major forest landowners financially supporting our research. It's part of professional code, I guess. So there's the formal surveys done by professional biologists, and then there is the issue of citizens. You know, maybe they're retired biologists, but citizens who know what they're doing and can take a picture and report data. Fish and game biologists vet all that data so that they're sure it's been seen at a time of year that indicates, okay, this is a resident here, it's not a migrant or whatever. So the at the last hearing, there was a lot of concern about data coming in online. And I just want to make the point that that data doesn't just boom go into the database. It's vetted carefully by fish and game biologists. So the chance encounters is kind of one pool of data in the database, and the formal surveys. And the whole landowner permission thing is very different for those two buckets of data. And it's, in my mind, unreasonable to expect Fish and Game to figure out the land ownership of data that comes in from the public. Another issue is radio telemetry is now a really important tool for documenting the travels of many different species. I mean, fishers aren't endangered, but folks are probably aware of the fisher that traveled from the parking lot at UNH to, I think it was Lincoln. That fisher, if it had been a lynx, which is on the endangered list, is going to cross multiple ownerships in the course of its travels. And a biologist sitting at their desk can get information from the radio tag that's on that animal. Trying to figure out from the GPS locations that that tag is transmitting to the biologist's computer with town tax maps to figure out where those points are and whose property they are. Can you imagine trying to do that? So that's another concern that you need to think about.
Should we tag the turtles?
People do. I mean, when there was the whole conversation going on about how far do they travel, there have been radio telemetry studies done on these species, and probably Mike could tell you how far they travel. But there is data available on how far they travel. The age of records has been discussed this morning. I'll just say, in addition to the progeny issue and the fact that if there was animal A there 20 years ago, if the habitat is still suitable, there's a good chance that future generations of that species are there today. But that record tells biologists, okay, they at least used to be here. We need to check and see if the habitat is still available and there's still the opportunity for a population to survive here. So it's not about individual animals being in this place at this time. It's about the potential for either a breeding unit in the case of, we'll say, a loon nest, or a population to persist through time, because that's the whole point here, is to encourage these species to persist through time.
Dumb question time.
Not dumb, no dumb
I
questions.
challenge that. So we get an overpopulation of foxes in a particular area where there was an endangered turtle. They wipe it out. Yet we still have history that there were endangered turtles there, but they're gone. Now, it's documented, and individuals want to develop around that area. How does this affect that?
How do
does
you
it
know? How do you know that the foxes wipe them out?
That's the point. You don't. And so my concern is definitely for the turtles, but also for the private property owners. I mean, so their ability to develop their land if they want to is affected by previous history as opposed to current history. And that seems to be a lot of friction right here. So I can tell you, when I go to Mine Falls, and that's why I did bring that up, I don't know how these guys survive, but they do. because you see all the holes where the foxes and animals have dug up where those turtles were laying their eggs. And actually, they have to come in and they have to fill that up from time to time on the paths. So, but I think, and I know there's an abundance of turtles there. You see them all the time. But if we get an overpopulation of foxes, you know, as nature goes through these cycles, you know, you have an overpopulation and it wipes out a particular. You can't tell whether that species has been wiped out or versus the current information of nobody's seeing it for, say, 10 years or something to that effect. And now I want to put a duplex or a development there. There seems to be a tension between old and new and private ownership.
Well, I guess in the case of turtles, their primary habitat is a wetland.
Yep.
And you're not going to build a housing development, fill in the wetland and build a housing development for reasons other than endangered species. We have wetlands.
Does Nashua know this?
I mean, I would also highly suspect that if you're seeing a lot of turtle nests dug up, they're unlikely to be an endangered turtle species. They're probably painted turtles, which are very common in New Hampshire, and snapping turtles, which are also very common in New Hampshire. So the other thing is, if we were concerned about turtle nesting areas, if I was the biologist dealing with this situation where there's been a turtle recorded in a wetland, someone wants to put a housing development along the edge of the wetland, and the foundation was going to be dug in sandy soil, I might look for some places around the edge of that wetland where that weren't going to be disturbed by the construction, which has to be X feet from the wetland to begin with, and just ensure that there's some suitable nesting habitat near the edge of the wetland. You're not preventing the development, you're providing some mitigation for the potential loss of nesting
So
habitat.
there is
So
a setback by feet, but some of these turtles travel miles.
right, but they're looking for a particular substrate. They're not going to dig their nest hole in clay soil or hardpan soil. They're looking for loose soil where they can nest. So anyway, that's
I
all
digress.
kind of
Those are the
hypothetical, but I do have written testimony and I will leave it there unless there are other questions.
Senator Waters.
Carol, you're wearing a lot of hats today.
Pardon?
You're wearing a lot of hats today. And I
Yes.
just want to thank you so much for your decades of dedication to our conserving our habitat and species. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you are our final speaker, so thank you for doing what you do, and we appreciate your expertise. What? Did you sign up? Oh, you're not on the list today. Come on up. I don't know why you're not on the list today. Come on up, Joe. Last week, that's right. Yeah, there were 3 people from last week that didn't speak. You're right, so I'm corrected.
I don't want to correct the chairman.
No, you can correct the chairman all day long, he can be taught. But there were 3 people from last week that did not speak, that was carrying over. I gave you that courtesy. So please introduce yourself. Should be from last week's, Joshua. There were 3 people. That's why I asked if there was anybody else on the list that didn't.
again, thank you for your indulgence. And for the record, I'm Jason Stock. I'm the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Timberland Owners Association, and I do appreciate the opportunity to speak. I do have a couple documents coming around I'll reference in my testimony. One is a letter from Tom Thompson. He's a tree farmer up in Orford. And like Tom, we both support House Bill 1603. And I will I'll explain why and kind of the rationale and why we feel there is a need for this piece of legislation. The question about accessing property to gather data goes back to 2009 when DES adopted a policy, and you have that in your packet, that quite clearly states that if they're going to enter private property to gather data, that they're going to obtain landowner permission. If that's refused and they feel there's a need, there are other ways to do it, administrative warrants, etc. Now, of course, if there's an enforcement action or if you've pulled a permit, if you've obtained a permit, you've taken an action, they by law have the ability to enter that property. And that's part of the deal. If I'm going to pull a permit to cross a wetland, do an alteration of terrain, install a septic system, I pull that permit. Part of the deal is, here's what I'm required to do. DES has the authority to come in and make sure I'm doing what I should be doing. But if it's to enter property to gather data for surveys of one type or another, that's a different matter, and that's why we feel that this legislation, and we're looking just at not the law enforcement side. So if there's a conservation officer that needs to enter a piece of property, that's not what we're talking about. But if there's a survey or something that's going to be entered, in this case, into the Natural Heritage Database, we think asking for landowner permission is just the right thing to do. We think it's not only a courtesy, but we think it will also foster better communications and landowner cooperation. And so with that, I also provided a copy of an email thread dated November 21st, 2025. And this is Fish and Game's policy for entering private property. And I highlighted on that the part that I wanted to draw your attention to, and that is biological, and this is from Kevin Sullivan to the Danville Board of Selectmen. And it clearly states that biological and other staff must adhere to criminal trespass and posting, cannot enter private property that's posted without first obtaining landowner permission. When entering unposted private property while in the course of their work duties, staff are encouraged, emphasis on encouraged, to seek landowner permission whenever practical. And so for us, like DES, we feel that the Fish and Game Department should follow suit and say, if we're going to enter, even if it's not posted, we feel they should obtain landowner permission. Again, we feel this is the responsible and the courteous and the right thing to do. And so when House Bill 1603 was in the House, the original version was rather prescriptive. And you heard about the stakeholder group that worked on this. And the thinking at the time was, all right, there was a lot of concern about how prescriptive it was. What about this? What about that? We said, all right, well, let's do this. Let's dial back. Let's create a rulemaking. Let's get the agency's input. Let's let them adopt rules with some sideboards. The sideboards are, agency, we would like you to get landowner permission. Tell us how you're going to do it. Let's have a rulemaking to do that. But we want you to obtain landowner permission. And so that was the thinking or the rationale. This bill does not eliminate databases. It doesn't prohibit gathering data. It doesn't say that. And sitting in the back of the room, I sometimes pull what little hair I have out when people get up and say, look, this is going to eliminate the database. No, it's not. All we're doing is we're asking the department to develop rules to get landowner permission. In terms of the database, what we're saying is we would like you to develop rules to ensure its accuracy. You heard a lot of testimony. You've heard a tremendous amount of testimony about citizen scientists gathering turtles, releasing turtles, doing stuff with turtles all over the state. And what we want to ensure as landowners, and I think as conservationists as well, is that the data in this database is in fact accurate. Because as the chairman had pointed out, if a landowner is going to use their property, this data can have implications on how that property could be used or managed. And so that was the point, was to try, let's make sure that there's some process in place. And again, Fish and Game, go to the rules, let's work together, let's develop a process to ensure this. And yes, let's look at some of those older records. It doesn't eliminate old records. I just want to be crystal clear. And that was never the intent. In fact, I've had some conversations with folks recently about what if you look more prospectively and say, all right, let's look at this in a two-step process. Going forward, if you're going to enter data into the database, let's ensure that there was a landowner permission, and that it was a qualified individual that has entered this property, that there's a process there. Again, to get into the weeds in this forum and in the House to try to define all of this, I think would be overwhelming. And so again, I would suggest that rules is the appropriate place to do that. Notwithstanding some of the comments I've heard about legislative intent, but to get into the nitty-gritty in some of this, I think rulemaking is the appropriate place. Let me just double check. Yeah, so the last item I wanted to provide is information about the database, and it's been redacted. Again, this is from a landowner member in Danville. Danville seems to be the center of the universe on this issue, but this is and what I want to point out is in 2014, a natural heritage was done on map 4, lot 46, and a Blanding's turtle was observed. Turn the page, map 4, lot 46. We currently have no record occurrence of sensitive species near this project area. So that was, do my math, 6 years later. 5 years after that, again, map 4, lot 46, Blanding's turtle and a clustered sedge were provided. So again, to me, what this suggests, and I totally understand data changes, habitats shift, animals move around, and they can be here today, they can be someplace else tomorrow. But to me, what this totally suggests is that there is cause or reason to say, all right, let's at least establish a process. Let's have a stakeholder process through rulemaking, and let's create a process to manage this. The last part of that, or relative to that, landowners are, and you heard a little bit of this earlier today, there is a sensitivity. We have a lot of landowners that have unique habitats, endangered species on their property, and it's a pretty cool thing. But I don't want that. That information, I really don't want that broadcast. I don't want that out there. And I understand there are protocols to shield the information, but from a landowner's perspective, there's I can tell you from personal experience, I have on our property, we have some pretty neat cultural features. We have some old cellar holes, some areas where it was an old farmstead. That's a special place for me and my family. I don't want that in a database. I don't want that advertised. Endangered species, the same thing. We have members that have unique bugs and things of that nature on their property. That's part of our property. That's part of our family's heritage and legacy. And if someone wants to come out, if someone from the state of New Hampshire wants to come out and take a look, please come and ask for permission first. We think it's just the right thing to do. We think it's a common courtesy. And, you know, for us, this is about property rights, but more so, it's about just doing the right thing. And, you know, the questions about crossing someone's lawn, for many of our members, we have very big lawns. And if someone is on the back 40, you know, or near my home, it's the same relevance to me and my family. With that, I will conclude my testimony. I hope you'll look favorably on this bill, and I'm happy to try and answer any questions. I am not an expert I'm not a biologist or an ologist. I actually studied soil science. Don't ask me how I got here, but
Senator Rosenthal has a question.
all right, thank you.
Thanks for taking my
Sure.
question. Are any of your members concerned about invasive insects such as the emerald ash borer or the woolly adelgid? Is that a concern to the timber owners, and are they looking for good, solid data on how these invasive bugs may be affecting their asset?
Absolutely. And again, there's tremendous, whether it's invasive insects or plants. But again, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's having good data, good information about it. But there's a tremendous amount of concern about that.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Senator Waters.
Thanks so much. So as I said before, I think we're going to find some ways to address the issues that are raised. I see where you're pointing to the word encourage. You know, I mean, it's the kinds of areas that we can get at. I do think that some of your comments, though, I want to get some clarity on. Would you see the logic of saying that, yes, site-specific, when it means somebody, a wildlife biologist, wants to go and investigate on your property, that's the kind of thing we're talking about for permission?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're going to enter my property,
Yeah.
that's, I mean, our you know, our interest or our jurisdiction, so to speak, ends at our property line.
And that's it. And why I think we need some definition of site-specific along those lines is because we do have, as we heard from Carol Foss and others, that there are reports that are documented. Somebody, you know, may not be on the property for the purpose investigated, but they're, you know, lawfully on the property or on a trail, or they're on the road out front, and they see someone take a picture and they report that, and that's verifiable data in its own way. So that to me seems to be a distinction that we probably ought to have some guidelines to direct the rulemaking. Can you understand that approach?
I thank you for the question. Senator, I do. I think for us, when you enter my property to gather data, that's, you know, I can't, if there's a road, if there's a turtle that's hit on a road, I can't do anything about that. And it's not I don't think it's a good thing, but if a state agent is going to enter my property to gather data, it's at that point that I think the landowner there should be a connect. And the other piece is that in this modern day and age of GPS and some of these hunting apps called Onyx, you can it's not just town tax maps. You can go on and find And I have hunters all the time will find me out working in my woods saying, hey, can I hunt on the back 40? How'd you, how did you find me? Oh, Onyx. So there are ways in this technological age, there are ways to easily find landowners and connect with them.
So we're not saying there's a lot of animals on your property to go hunting with, right?
There's especially, yes, there are no deer on my property and the wild turkey season's coming up. Don't even bother.
They're all on the road anyways.
So just one more comment, if I could. Then I heard you say some different things about the data. And you kind of wove around in different areas around that. You've heard that my concern is the fiscal note and this issue about re-examining data and re-verifying, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's no money in the Fish and Game Fund. So this is, I think that, we may need to provide some clarity in that area too, because not only do we want to preserve the integrity of that data, but also I think forward looking is the point. But also we simply cannot have hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, when we passed the budget, we drained the Fish and Game Fund by the end of the second year. There's no money, it's not some mythical amount of money. And they're not going to come to joint fiscal and say, now we want $300,000 to hire all these scientists to go back and do that. So I hope you understand that too.
I do, and to that point, and I'll step down, but to that point, I had suggested, I think I even mentioned in my testimony here, there are ways to do that. Look prospectively. Okay, let's kind of look at, you've got this body of data, you have data coming in, let's look prospectively. If you're going to have data coming into it, ensure that there is that there was landowner permission obtained and that it's a qualified individual. But then the body of existing data, I think there's a mechanism there. It's called the permit. And when does that data get examined? It's when someone decides to do a wetlands crossing, alteration of terrain. And it's at that point that I think you would go in and say, all right, there's an occurrence here. I gave you an example of one. It was done 3 times. There were 3 different variables. Say, all right, maybe there's something here. Maybe let the landowner bring in and say, all right, I'll hire a wetland scientist or a wildlife biologist. Let's do an assessment. But again, I'm not trying to foist that requirement on the department, but I do think there is an issue there. As we all know, habitats change and critters move. And so I am very sensitive to that fiscal point.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks so much.
Kimberly? Anna Tuyano. Very Irish. Not here. Okay. Laura Demery? Do you want to? Okay. But you're here. Thank you for being here. And our final speaker, and I'm going to have to hold it to this, Robert Johnson, the guitar player. Great guitar player. All right, that's for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, Rob Johnson, representing the New Hampshire Farm Bureau as the Federation's policy director, and we are in support of House Bill 1603. Our members own and manage hundreds of thousands of acres of land in the state, and I can tell you that the vast majority take great pride in allowing public access, and take also great joy in the wildlife that lives on their property of any size. What this bill is about is I would say simply communication to landowners and engaging landowners. Nobody, at least my membership, Farm Bureau membership, nobody knows their property better. And I think as landowners, we could be a great asset in this area if we know what's happening on our property. Again, no one knows it better. My understanding is that Fish and Game's policy in this area is if the land is posted, then they seek permission. If it's not, then they encourage it. I read that to say to Fish and Game, well, landowners want to know who's on their property. You're encouraging posting, which is what we don't want. I mean, obviously there are different types of posting. There's posting to just prohibit, period, and there's posting to have a conversation first. That's what we as landowners want. We simply want to have that conversation. I know of, as has been testified to previously, I know of very few landowners that if were approached about endangered species on their property and their ability to enhance that species is not going to want to help. I've kind of been blown away in the testimony the last couple of days. I feel in some ways that we as landowners are seen as enemies, and I don't understand that at all. At least again, the members that I work with, my family's property, I mean, we really take great pride. If we can enhance an endangered species, we're all for it. It brings tremendous joy. It doesn't, when it comes to a state agency accessing a property, I do think there's an expectation on all of us that we are going to be sought out. And again, I don't think, in closing, I don't think that the bill is onerous in what it's asking. It's as Mr. Sock said it, we don't want to be a burden on Fish and Game. We view the agency as a partner. I say this all the time in all my testimony, that they are a partner of ours. And it's simply one that periodic check-in at some point. And if it's at the point of where a permit is being sought, and that's good, but that needs to happen. And I guess I'll leave it at that. I know you've had a lot of testimony on this, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks, Rob.
No further questions. Thank you very much. And we're going to close the hearing on HB 1603. And we're going to hear from Senator Pearl. As soon as you're ready.
What's up?
This is 593. Yeah, to replace all amendment. Senator Pearl, you are recognized. We're opening up the hearing, SB 593.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the committee. For the record, my name is Senator Howard Pearl. I reside in the town of Loudon, representing District 17. I am here today to introduce an amendment to Senate Bill 593. The amendment is 2026-1168S. For the sake of clarity, I don't know that this is a non-germane amendment, but it felt like it was the best path just to have a hearing on it because the topic is a little different than the underlying bill, even though they're both in solid waste management. So what the bill seeks to do is establish ability to pay back to the solid waste management districts the fee that we put in House Bill 2. In the last budget, we assessed a $3.50 per ton fee, and we were going to refund it back to the municipalities, which works fine in most cases, but there are municipalities that are members of solid waste management districts. And this created a little bit of a wrinkle because the districts themselves were not able to be reimbursed, yet they were the ones that were reporting and paying the fee. So the fee that $3.50 fee is being paid by the district, and it would have to go back to the communities and then back to the district. And it's creating a bit of a little bit of a headache for these districts. So the easiest way to fix this, in my conversations with Director Wimsatt and other members, in fact, we have a member of the BCEP Solid Waste Management District here today, and he can potentially provide some more info beyond what I'm giving you. But the easiest way to rectify this situation was just simply to change the statute and allow the direct payment back to these solid waste management districts. So using Senate Bill 593, which is a bill we had here in committee that we weren't intending to move forward in its original form, I felt this was a good vehicle since it was in solid waste management already to put this amendment on and correct this issue that we had identified. So I will be happy to take some questions if anyone has any.
So for the record, this is a replace all.
Yes,
Questions from the committee? Senator Rosenwald.
I was hoping you'd ask one.
Would you consider a friendly grammatical amendment
Of course.
on line 16? Move the word only to after reflect.
To reflect after, so put
So
only,
it would say reflect only.
so just move right ahead one
Yep.
word.
So you would like it to read, payments to solid waste districts shall reflect the amount.
No,
of-
shall
Shall
reflect
reflect only.
only.
Oh, reflect. Oh, reverse the two words, I'm sorry. I don't think it changes the meaning, and if it reads
Doesn't.
better to you,
It makes the meaning what you want it to.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Two
did not
teachers.
write that, but I will let you have, I'd be happy to change
We'll
that.
consider,
Thank you.
we'll consider that in the,
What you see, you've accomplished something
I-
today, Senator Rosenwald, no matter what
I-
else happened.
Exactly. I feel so valuable.
My English teacher at school is smiling at you right now, because she never did at me.
any further questions? Seeing done, thank you
All right.
very much, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Moore?
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you. Thank you to Senator Pearl for doing this, by the way. Okay, I'm not an expert here to witness things, so you may have to guide me from time to time. I did send in an email yesterday afternoon and the attached two-pager. Very first line, I did a typo. I introduced myself as a volunteer rep from Chichester to the BCEP district. I'm the alternate rep, not trying to pad a resume here. So we, BCEP, support this amendment, like it a lot. The one thing I would like to do is make it retroactive to January 1st, because we've been paying the $3.50 since January 1st. And that equates out at the moment to, well, $3,000 a month or something, less
I
than
don't know if
that.
we have that authority to do that. Yeah,
That's unfortunate. It's costing us a
yeah,
pretty good chunk of change that's going to come out of our taxpayer pockets.
If I may.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Mr. Moore,
So he's asking to make it retroactive to January.
so Mr. Moore, what it's, it's going to take a little bit of time to get this into place, and in my conversations with Director Wimsatt, we're not going to be able to go back and fix that. So my suggestion is, you know, you work that out with the towns for the 1 year, however you're going to have to work it out. You may have to, you know, you'll have to figure that one out. You can just assess them, whatever tonnage you decide to, as long as you're made whole in the end, it really doesn't matter for that 1 year, and this will be able to help you going forward.
We appreciate the help going forward.
It's hard to be time travelers, and we wish we could. but,
Yeah.
Right, right. It's a tax issue. It's going to come out of the four towns. It's going to be 5,000 tons at $3.50 a ton. So it's going, you know,
We can stop the hemorrhaging, that's about all we can do. at
okay,
this
that's
point.
good.
So the
So-
recommendation would be most likely just figure it out. I don't care if you even want to use one of them as a town and do it all, or divide it up 4 ways equally, and make that happen to
Yeah,
get you to,
unfortunate.
till we can get this enacted.
So this is gonna be on as of July 1st though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so still in favor of the amendment. Let's not lose that. We still like the amendment a lot. I've got a quick 1 or 2 pager that I emailed in yesterday. So instead of reading the whole thing, may I summarize
Summarize would be
what
great.
this is? Okay, so as I just mentioned, $15,000 to $20,000 a year expense to us. The RSA is 149 R5 that collects the money, and it's R4 that distributes the money back. So we're good with that. We wanted to add the solid waste districts to the municipalities as described by Senator Pearl. Good with that. BCEP background, I think, is good leisurely reading if you're curious about solid waste districts. The problem I think we've discussed, it's that we've been paying in the $3.50 since January 1st. We will continue to pay that in. We'll be getting our reimbursements as municipalities have been doing since January 1st. We will start ours when the effective date of this amendment comes into play. I think that's it.
Perfect. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much for your
Thank
testimony.
you.
Appreciate it. Sarah, you didn't say whether you wanted to speak or not, but you support. You want to speak? You support. You're wonderful. And Leah, you said yes, but you don't support or oppose. So welcome.
Actually, I have a question for Leah before she testifies. If I may.
Sure.
I remember I had a conversation with Director Wimsatt, and I can't remember, did he want me to change this effective date to January 1 of 27?
Yes.
Okay, I remember.
did want it.
Good
yes,
morning.
Because we were, and explain why for the, for
Sure,
Mr.
sure,
Morris. benefit,
absolutely,
please.
sure. Good morning, Leah McKenna, 7% Irish, members of the committee. I am the administrator of the Solid Waste Management Bureau at DES. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have and to point out one omission. And yes, and to absolutely explain the date
Yes.
further shift.
So we are allowed to go retro?
No. 27.
Further shift out
There's a
to
reason.
July 1, 2027.
Yep.
And that is solely because we need time for rulemaking.
Yes.
Our process would not allow for solid waste districts because the law doesn't allow for it. And without rules in place, we can't administer that change.
So the law doesn't go into effect without the rulemaking procedures first, and so you can't enforce a law without rules, and so we have to pass the bill and then make the rules for it so that it comes, that's all, every piece of legislation that we do. I'm talking to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize for the delay, but that is how things go forward, so definitely can't go retro.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. And go ahead.
Sure. So I wanted to just point out on page 1, line 14, that I believe after municipality, there should also be or solid waste management district. So you want to have payment made based on the tonnage that either the municipality or the solid waste management district was financially responsible for in order for the entire bill to reflect
Got it.
either or.
So it should read, I'm sorry if I may,
You
Mr.
may.
Chairman. So it should read solid waste for which the municipality or solid waste management district was financially responsible.
You got it.
Got it. Okay.
I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
And you're okay with the moving shall and only to reverse? I mean, I'm
fine
sorry,
with that.
reflect and only?
Yes, of
Yes.
course, of course.
All right. With that, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
testimony. I have nobody else wishing to testify on this, so we're going to close the hearing.
Move to go into exec?
Seconded by Senator Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. So let's take up 593.
I'll move up pass.
Seconded by Senator
I
Waters.
want to move amendment 1168S, but I want to actually move a committee amendment.
Second. Go ahead.
So the committee amendment, Josh, when you probably have all of the changes, but it will be the base language of 1168 with the changes on line 14, adding the words or solid waste management district after the word municipality. Yep, district or districts? District singular, yes. Then on line 16, we will reverse the words only and reflect so that it shall reflect only. And then on line 30, change the effective date to 7/1 of 27.
Can't make that to January, huh? 27?
I'm sorry, January 1 of 27. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say.
So instead of July of 26.
Yes,
Yeah.
January 1. I'm sorry, I'm reading two things here. January 1 of 27. Thank you for catching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who spoke.
That saved you 6 months, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, rock on.
Yes.
All right, all in favor of the committee amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Consent.
All in favor of, ought to pass as
Oh,
amended?
yeah, we do. Aye.
Aye?
Aye, second.
So I moved, Senator Waters second.
So all in favor, say aye again one
Aye.
more time, just
Aye.
because we like it. Any opposed? Seeing none.
Move consent.
Second. TP, seconded by Senator McConkey, 5-0. Is anybody in favor of consent or? All right, let me say one thing on consent. Is it gonna stay on consent?
Yeah.
That way we don't have to pull it? Exactly, that's all I'm asking. So when something goes on consent, we want it to stay there. So there's no.
So there's no more technical changes that I'm aware.
Yeah, all right. It's on consent. All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll be happy to take it out if
And
you'd like.
Senator Pearl will take this out.
There you go.
Beautiful. Got one.
Thank you, Leah. Thank Mike too. I appreciate the input.
One more to go, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Verily, which one is that?
Senate Bill 447.
Is there a motion?
To pass.
447?
Your bill.
A second?
All right, discussion.
So, we heard, when we had this, last in committee, we heard, some concerns from Josh Elliott.
Yes.
And the major one was feeling that the department needed a definition of nonprofit educational institution.
Yes, he did.
Do you ever recall?
Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah, so, lots of go around on that, and I got some language just a day ago from Commissioner Davis that she thought was the way that it should be done. Do note that this does not affect the overall statutory definition of nonprofit educational institution, because that would have been opening up a can of worms about all kinds of other things. So it's gonna be for the purpose of this section. In
Section
terms of
5.
what we're trying to do with the energy stuff.
Right.
And here it is. It means a non-public, nonprofit elementary school, secondary school, or post-secondary institution, such as a college or university, with approval to operate as a school by the State Board of Education or Department of Education that exempt under the federal statute there, is organized and operated primarily for the purpose of providing direct instruction to enrolled students, does not distribute profits to private shareholders and individuals. Do note that this will cover charters.
Yep.
You know, all kinds of educational institutions. So it's a good definition, not meant to be exclusive. There are certain kinds of things that are set up that we wouldn't want this to apply to, because they're for profit or like that, whatever. But this is what the commission was comfortable with, and it's her language, so I think this will do that.
All right.
Then I had one other question, and perhaps, Josh, you could remind us from the hearing report. I'm going back to page 1.
Is that line 20?
Yeah, and as I recall, Josh wanted us to clarify, because one of these, this RSA doesn't exist anymore, or isn't relevant. So he wanted another part of the committee memo, then this line would read, these activities may include, strike everything before outreach programs. So do you recall that, Josh?
Yep.
And everybody else?
I do,
So
but I
that-
have only struck the management and funding and,
Yeah, these activities may include outreach programs to inform and educate the public, particularly regarding safety.
so strike everything up to outreach.
Yes, this is what they actually do, it's what they want to do. The other things are no longer relevant.
All right, so on line 20, Joshua, it'll say, these activities may include outreach programs to inform and educate the public, in particular regarding safety, and everything in between is struck.
Yeah. So the committee amendment would be that plus the nonprofit definition language.
All right, so,
Senator Waters is moving
Mo-
the committee amendment?
yes,
I'm
it's
moving the committee amendment.
1194, seconded by Senator Pearl. All in favor of the amendment 1194S?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Seeing none. And the committee amendment on page 1, line 20.
That's include, we just did that. We did the vote.
Oh.
One committee amendment,
Okay.
both of them.
All right,
So we will include the body of 1194 plus the changes that you made on line
that's
20.
correct.
That's,
All in favor of the committee amendments?
aye.
All right, any opposed? Seeing none.
It's your bill, you make the motion.
I move ought to pass as amended.
Second.
Any opposed? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'm not going to be voting for this because of the long-term power purchase agreement.
You're very consistent.
I am consistent.
Would you be opposed to consent?
Yes,
You would be opposed, okay. That's fine.
I might actually speak
Okay,
on the floor.
no, you're very welcome to. But I won't ask you a question on it.
You can ask me a question about it, and I won't be able to answer it, but I just think in terms of how we all manage our own finances, if you were taking out a mortgage, you would never take out a mortgage that you could not refinance if rates went down. And this locks the state into agreements for 20 years, I think. And we just don't. I would be the richest person in the world if I could predict.
Well, I would just suggest that, this is very different. I would suggest this is very different from a mortgage. It has to do with energy volatility, energy price hedging, and so on. And these procurement agreements, when they have been established for these energy purposes, have tended to end up not just saving a lot of money, but also the procurement agreement itself can include things that benefit the state and utilities. So it's a little bit apples and oranges. I understand your principle, and that's just fine, but this is why I just see it differently. So.
I think we heard on another bill that Connecticut ratepayers paid an extra $800+ million because of a long-term power purchase agreement. So I'm reluctant to do that to New Hampshire's ratepayers.
And with that,
You want to say these activities may include, or these may include activities? Because I'm kicked off that these activities may include outreach programs for particular garden safety.
That's what we want.
As well as on lines 36 and 37.
I don't see.
yes.
Where are you?
Yeah, page 2.
Yeah, page 2, line 36.
No, that's the amendment that was this,
Okay.
that was this amendment. 11,
So you'll see that the printed amendment, the OS amendment, replaces section 5. Okay?
Oh, I see.
I mean, whereas the earlier one is just, these activities may include outreach programs, et cetera. Okay?
so all in favor of the committee, the bill passed as amended? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
And I'll take this out.
Okay. Good work, Mr. Chairman.
Any,
I may say.
anything else? We're all good?
Oh, let me, as long as we're here, on 1603. So, you know, Howard's done some good work with Jason, and there's some thoughts from him. I have some thoughts. Jim O'Brien has reached out wanting to, you know, I mean, we're going to get somewhere. But I think we need some clarifications, and I think, you know, in talking with Jason Rob out in the hall. They agree some of the things that we're looking at for some clarifications will be good. What my hope is that, I think kind of a two-step, I'd like to get together with Jim.
We have 1 week on this one.
So I've asked him to hold it a week.
They wanted
Yeah,
to push
all
it
right.
today, so. and
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll talk with Jim, see where he's at, and then why don't I get,
Just get in touch with me.
you and Rob and Jason, let's all get together. And, I guess we can have a third, but, we'll keep in touch with everybody. But, I mean, I think the basic principle is that we want to make sure that we have the landowner permission, preserve the integrity of the data. And just, the rulemaking is the way to go, but I think we probably have heard from Rob and Jason their concerns that we'd be directive enough to address the landowner concerns, and I agree. So, does that seem to be where we're at? Yep. Senator Pearl?
Senator Rosenwald and then Senator McCarthy. if that's all right.
Thank you. I think most of the testimony we heard in support of the bill was about getting landowner permission. And so I'm wondering if we should consider just keeping that provision.
We're kind of moving, not entirely that direction, but kind of focusing as you're suggesting, don't you think?
And I'll just point out how long it took to get Fish and Game to do online snowmobile registrations, as Senator Pearl knows. It took years, and something like that. And while we put in statute that they had to do them by September 1st of last year, the department read the plain language of the statute differently from what it said. So I think we have to consider how underfunded that agency is.
Yes.
What we're asking them to do, I'm looking at the fiscal note and thinking, this is not going to get through finance with this
Well, I
kind of
think-
money on it.
I think we'll be able to address that, because I think everybody agrees we can't put a big hit on them, and, I think there's ways to do that.
That's why we need a pier at Hampton Beach. All right.
Once we get agreed language, we have 3 finance votes right here.
Yeah. Senator McCarthy.
If I could, perhaps the department was channeling their inner turtle.
I still think it's about the mountain lion.
I'm sure it's been in the language all before, but I am extremely worried about rulemaking. And I've seen departments expand that to other areas that just were not what we perceived to be. So I'm hopeful that there'll be the similar language as that if they go into rulemaking specifically to address this one.
Yeah,
And that can be brought up
Gotta be.
as far as
Gotta
the
be.
intent, yeah.
yeah, gotta
I
be.
share your concern about just giving rulemaking authority without policy
Guidelines.
parameters and
To-
been burned.
Yeah, I agree that, the clarification and the specificity has got to be done. What I want in the rulemaking is enough flexibility so they can do it to avoid the financial impact. And I mean, they probably can't avoid every dollar, but just let's get it reasonable.
Motion to come out of exec?
Seconded by Senator Avard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you. Good job, everybody.
I
Well
gotta run
done.
and do a school break.
On we go.
I gotta go to a school group here very soon.
Oh, good.
You're such a
Oh, and
sap.
I didn't bring my
You're such
guitar.
a sap.